Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pink Cloud Frequency. I am your host, Brianna Wynn. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you have ever heard the phrase one day at a time, this episode is for you. Like so many of the conversations we have here, this discussion extends far beyond alcohol. That's one of my favorite parts about hosting this podcast. It might start out by talking about alcohol, but it always feels like it ends up touching on life in general. Because changing your relationship with alcohol has a funny way of changing your relationship with yourself, your habits, and the way you make decisions. My hope is that every episode leaves you with something you can carry into your everyday life, whether you're sober curious or alcohol free, or simply trying to become more intentional. I don't just want to help you stop drinking. I really want to help you build a life that feels so good that you don't constantly question yourself and your thoughts and your intuition. And that's really the heart of this episode. I have heard the phrase one day at a time thousands of times. When people are going through rough patches in life, it's always take it one day at a time. And if that helps you, I genuinely think that's great. But for me, it simply doesn't make sense. There were many instances throughout the years while I was still drinking that I did want to quit. Sunday mornings, I'd wake up after a bad night and say to myself, that's it, I'm done. And I wouldn't drink for a few days, maybe even a week. But then I'd start negotiating with myself again. I'll just have wine tonight. I was struggling because I kept reopening a thought. That thought was reopening because I hadn't fully committed to the decision. On the days I didn't drink, it would sort of feel like an achievement. But then tomorrow always came. And with tomorrow came another decision on whether or not I would drink. I wasn't moving toward freedom. I was just restarting the same conversation with myself over and over again. But once I made the decision to quit drinking alcohol and I committed to that decision, the experience of being alcohol-free became so liberating. I truly believe that started with embracing the decision to quit. Every morning, I wake up refreshed and ready to live another alcohol-free day. I don't wake up and think, am I drinking today? But that's how I used to wake up. If I still had those thoughts today, then every single day would be another negotiation. And negotiation is exactly what you're trying to move away from in the first place, because you've likely already tried moderation and it doesn't work. So in order to move from negotiation to freedom, you have to be decisive. This is why one day at a time will keep you stuck, because decisions are exhausting. We've talked about decision fatigue on previous episodes, so you already know that your brain doesn't like making repeated decisions. It's really that simple. Every decision you make throughout the day uses up your mental energy. The more decisions you make, the worse your choices become. So if every single morning your brain has to decide whether or not you're drinking. You're asking your brain to solve the exact same problem 365 times a year instead of solving it once. That's why willpower doesn't work when you're trying to quit. So the question to ask is, why are you considering an alcohol-free lifestyle in the first place? Are you feeling disconnected? Is it lack of fulfillment? Better relationships? Are you tired of hangovers, being sick, having brain fog, or wasting away days in bed? Or maybe it's a combination of all of those, which it was for me. I remember about 2 years ago, standing in my kitchen at nighttime, grabbing the tequila bottle out of my cabinet. My son was in his bedroom, which was right next to the kitchen. When I closed the cabinet, I closed it slowly and quietly, hoping he wouldn't hear me. Why in the world was I worried about my son hearing whether or not I was pouring myself a drink? To keep this into perspective, I wasn't a daily drinker. I used to drink only on weekends, if that. But at this point in my life, 2 years ago, my drinking had progressed to 2 nights a week, sometimes 3, sometimes even 4. It really depended on the week and what was going on. I felt completely in control. So then why was I concerned with whether or not my son would know I was pouring myself a drink? It was a subconscious reaction out of my own guilt and inner knowing that I was living out of alignment. My son never said anything to me about my drinking. He didn't question me. There wasn't anything that warranted me feeling the need to hide it from him, so to speak. But in my own mind, I knew I wasn't doing the right thing. It felt like, here we go again, pouring another drink. Don't want him to see me repeating this old habit. And for me, that was an eye-opening point that I will never forget, because it made me realize this is, in fact, more of a problem that I'm letting on. So the idea is to really lean into those insights, even when it feels hard, because they are signals. There is a reason that you keep returning to the consideration of an alcohol-free lifestyle in the first place. When you pay attention to the insights in your thoughts, you will likely begin to realize that alcohol is a problem. And the life that you're looking for is only possible once you remove it. Maybe you've been sensing lately a deeper conviction that quitting is in fact the right choice for you. Or you have a deeper sense of faith in what is to follow on that path, even though you haven't yet taken the first step. Once you get firm on your why and clear on the potential outcomes, you can actually make the decision. I know that this is, in fact, the hardest part, and it comes at a different point for everyone. Maybe you go to bed at night and you say, enough is enough. Maybe you wake up one Saturday morning hungover and you decide you're not waiting until Monday. Or maybe you make a promise to yourself or someone else that you admire and respect, that you're going to do this, no more questions asked. At whichever time you decide to quit for good, you stand on it. It's no longer about the consideration or the negotiation or the exhaustion that follows from that. You don't have to wake up every morning asking yourself if this is what you want. You don't have to go to bed at night with unanswered questions, wondering if you should or shouldn't quit. You make the decision and then you start living your life. You start changing your routines and building new habits and practicing self-care because your mental space has freed up from seeing how you'll feel tomorrow or trying harder next time to having the capacity to pour back into yourself. So that when you wake up in the morning, your first thought isn't alcohol. It's your walk or your meditation. It's vacancy for processing emotions rather than feeling anxiety. It's excitement about your goals and the day ahead of you. And that is true freedom. But you have that freedom because you stop living day for day and you start living in the decision. Decisions remove options. Think about it from a motherhood perspective. Being a mom isn't something you reconsider every morning. You don't wake up thinking if you'll still have kids today. You have children. Some days are wonderful. Some days are exhausting. But your identity as a mother does not change depending on whether today is hard or not. This seems so simple, but this is where women can get stuck because there's such a preoccupation with not drinking and getting through the day and getting through the hard moments that they don't remember to build a life as a non-drinker that they actually enjoy. But when you make that clear and final decision and you draw that line in the sand, your focus becomes staying committed to it. You stop the one day at a time. Now, every other choice you make is based off of that one decision not to drink. So you reschedule the vacation you had previously planned. You go to bed at 9 p.m. every night instead of staying awake until midnight. You grab ice cream from the freezer guilt-free to satiate those sugar cravings. You plan your socializing during the day. All of those choices flow so much easier once they are anchored to that one decision. And that's really the same with any decision. If you're married and a man invites you to dinner, how long does it take for you to turn him down? It's an immediate reaction. Does it matter how attractive he is or how nice the restaurant is that he wants to take you to? Of course not. When you're making choices based on your personal values and principles, there is zero room for negotiation. And that's the simplicity that I'm talking about here. Simple doesn't mean easy. I'm not saying that your alcohol-free journey is going to be a cakewalk. No. The work that you have to put in is still very real. But making that one clear decision is less exhausting than negotiating with yourself every single day. You don't have to decide if you're driving to the liquor store to buy that bottle of wine. You don't have to decide if you're going to happy hour with your coworkers. Alcohol is no longer part of the equation. When you are clear on that decision, all of those other questions disappear. You only have to do what honors that decision. You no longer try talking yourself out of it. You stop justifying why just one wouldn't be so bad. You stop seeking outside opinions. Your objective becomes to make choices that support the life that you're building. You give yourself that much more leverage and space to find that version of yourself that's been hiding. Your life starts to open up when you embrace that decision. And eventually, your brain catches up too. At first, when you quit, of course, your brain still expects alcohol to be the reward. So that's the hard part of quitting, because that's the pathway that you've strengthened over years of drinking. But every time you choose something different, your brain starts creating new associations. Eventually, your 6 p.m. gym workouts become rewarding. Reading becomes rewarding. Sleep becomes rewarding. I used to think Friday night was open up the bottle of tequila. But now Friday means working diligently on building my business. It means cooking a new recipe because I have a little bit of extra time. It means ordering takeout if I feel too busy with all of the other things that I'm doing. Friday night is now picking up my son and his friends anytime they call me. It means relaxing on my couch if that's what I'm inclined to do. Getting in bed at a time that I feel ready for bed. And waking up Saturday clear-headed. That entire experience in itself is the reward. And that's what happens when you quit drinking. You stop wanting alcohol because your brain learns there's something better. You don't have to rely on willpower. You're not making that decision 365 times more difficult for yourself. You stop trying to get through your days and you start living all 365 of them. You become hopeful instead of feeling restricted. You start becoming the non-drinker who values her commitments. Your life opens up and you begin to live on the other side of your one decision. When I quit drinking, nobody came to my house and congratulated me. There were no fireworks. I still have to work. I still have bills and motherhood and responsibilities. But the difference is I'm not arguing with myself anymore. And that is the freedom that I'm talking about when you make the decision. And when you stop living in that one day at a time mindset and you just lock in on the choice that you made. I don't decide if I still want this when I go to bed at night and when I wake up every morning. I'm not tempted by the people who are drinking around me. That decision has been made. So it's very easy to stay in my lane and politely decline offers to drink or politely decline anything that doesn't align with that choice. So to truly live as a non-drinker, you can't teeter back and forth. because then you'll never get to experience the full benefit of an alcohol-free lifestyle. You have to embrace the one decision, one life mindset. So for your reflection today, get honest about what makes you curious about an alcohol-free lifestyle in the first place. So thank you so much for listening today. If this episode resonated with you, please join us over in the private Facebook community, the Pink Cloud Frequency, for women seeking clarity, energy, and purpose. I will talk to you all next Wednesday.